So the reason I'm down here is to recognize the Alton School District for having a cybersecurity policy in place that will notify parents and faculty and staff if a student's personal information has been compromised. So as a parent, you would just assume that it's state law that if somehow your kid's social security number or personal information was stolen from a school district, that the school district would have to notify you. But it is not state law for that to be the case. And as a parent, I would want to know. And so Alton has gone above and beyond and has put in place a policy to require them to tell families if their kids' information has been compromised. And so we're recognizing and awarding the school district for doing that.
That's fantastic. Now, how many schools have been in this program?
So far, we've recognized 9 schools across the state. And I would mention that not every school district has this policy in place. So really, it is something special. It is something to be recognized and be proud of for the school district.
And I know Houston was one of the ones recently recognized. We ran a story a few weeks ago, I believe, on that one. So yeah, definitely a great thing. As far as the cybersecurity goes, besides that policy, are there anything else in that qualification? Is there anything else that people, or those school districts, any other steps they take to keep their kids and district patrons protected?
We have audited school districts across the state to determine what kind of cybersecurity measures they have in place. And this is a hole that we noticed. Because, look, there's a market for kids' social security numbers. I mean, I've been talking to classes when I go into these schools and often ask them, do you know your social security number? Could you recite it if somebody asked you? And almost across the board, nobody knows their social security number because they don't use it. When they start using their social security number to apply for colleges or utilities when they move out of their parents' house, all of a sudden they might find that their credit has been ruined before they've even had a chance to use it, before they're ever getting started in life. And so parents being able to know that information has been compromised, that their kids' social security or identity has been stolen, it's really important so we can do something as parents so we don't ruin our kids' credit and financial history, or hackers don't ruin their financial history before they even have a chance to use it.
And something else that you've been instrumental with is the Whistleblower Hotline. We were talking before we started this video about that and how busy it's been.
That's right. So the state auditor has a Whistleblower Hotline where we take anonymous information from citizens, from public officials, from government employees about government waste, fraud, abuse, and mismanagement. And this year we've had over 5,000 contacts to our whistleblower hotline because, well, just to put that in context, last year there were about 200. A lot of those calls have come in because of the Department of Revenue's handling of income tax refunds and concerns citizens have had with their income tax refund and dealing with Department of Revenue. And it's my job as state auditor to take in these whistleblower calls and to try to address those concerns through the audit process.
And how does that work? How does that process work?
So when, for instance, with Department of Revenue, the Department of Revenue has 45 days to get you your income tax refund. If they don't get your tax refund within 45 days, they owe you interest. And we were getting complaints from citizens that they couldn't get information from Department of Revenue, they couldn't get status, they weren't getting their refunds, they weren't getting interest, they were having all these problems. And so our hotline was flooded with calls. We're auditing Department of Revenue's processing of tax refunds because it is the citizens' money and they should be able to get it as quickly as possible. You work real hard all year long and you pay a penalty if you don't pay your taxes on time, but Department of Revenue, gets this time and there's really no consequences except for that interest. And we've had complaints they're not paying that interest when it's owed. So we're auditing to hold the Department of Revenue accountable and trying to get answers for these citizens.
All right, and of course, we talking with State Auditor Nicole Galloway down here in West Plains in the area. Again, as you said earlier, recognizing the Alton School for being cyber aware. You are up for reelection in 2018, and you are currently the only Democratic state office holder. As far as your accomplishments in office, if you could talk a bit about when you were first elected and what you think have been your major accomplishments since being elected?
It is my state auditor to be an independent watchdog, making sure that government uses the resources you send to government as efficiently and effectively as possible. And let's not forget that those resources are your tax dollars, the money that's coming out of your paycheck, the money that's coming out of your wallet. And so it's my job to root out waste, fraud, abuse, and mismanagement. And we've identified about $130 million in the past 2 years of government waste. Also, we work with law enforcement. When we identify public corruption, we want to hold these folks accountable. And so, because of our audits, about 30 criminal counts have been brought against a dozen public officials in this state, and this number continues to grow. I view my job, again, as independent. I audit Democrats and Republicans alike. I am tough, I am fair, and I am thorough, because that's what people want out of an independent watchdog, and that's what they want out of the state auditor's office.
Come election time next year, why do you think people should choose you versus whatever Republican candidate may get the nomination?
I'm not really focused on the election because there's so much work to do here within the office. I'm a CPA and I'm a certified fraud examiner and worked in the private sector as an auditor and accountant before ever getting into public service. I am very passionate about my job and holding government officials accountable. I've always said, if there are public dollars at play, no one is immune from review. You must be held accountable for how you're using taxpayer money, and it's certainly something that I'm passionate about, and getting those types of results for taxpayers, getting money back to them, getting their refunds back to them, rooting out waste, and taking public officials that commit fraud and taking them out of office and getting that money back. That is something that is truly rewarding to me.
We talked about the Whistleblower Hotline a little bit ago. Do you have that phone number handy in case people might have information on some shady dealings going on?
That's right. So we want to hear from citizens, and we want to hear from even government employees. Sometimes government employees have the most knowledge about fraud because they might see it in the workplace. And so our 1-800 number is 1-800-347-8597.
Pretty easy to remember.
Yeah.
All right. State Auditor Nicole Galloway, thanks for joining us today. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.